Good evening, everyone from Meditation Mount. We are located above the eastern end of the Ojai Valley in Southern California. So welcome to part 2 of Navigating by the Light of the Soul. It's wonderful to have us all gathered from various parts of the planet as we inquire the way together. So let's begin today's exploration with an alignment and a brief recap from part 1. So take a few deep, gentle breaths. Know yourself to be connected with all other people on this call by the subtle network of light and love. And as we breathe gently together, we release any tensions that may be held in our physical, emotional, or mental bodies. And we stand inside the stillness of the heart. And we sense the pulse of the heart, the beat. And we sense the pulsing of the lifeblood as it circulates around our universe of self. And we know that throughout the network of our connectivity, heart to heart to heart to heart, this lifeblood is the fluid of love. So let us be aware that together we stand, hearts woven together to form a matrix of love. It's a field of connection, coherence, community, communion, and we're gathered inside this collective space to inquire the way together. So thank you. So last month in part 1, we actually postulated, we put forward the notion that humanity has reached an evolutionary watershed moment. This is a critical collective choice point that we're facing, where we can continue to be entrapped and suffocated in materialism, or we can dare to liberate ourselves from the prison of fear and separation, and we can seek freedom from our unhealthy addictions to all those physical, emotional, and mental fixations and attachments. We do this so that the light of our soul may illumine the path ahead. And as we look around the world, I think we see that we're at this choice point. And last month, we emphasized the importance of awakening the soul in order to provide an inextinguishable source of light to help us successfully navigate these present times, because they are times of darkness. Temporary darkness, but nevertheless, we need a light to guide us on the journey of our spiritual growth, and also to point out our usefulness in the world. And this is the light of the soul. The other thing we noted that it's often difficult to see clearly without the aid of this inner light, while we're immersed in the fog that's created when the waters of the emotional plane and the fires of our lower desires meet and merge. So when these lower fires and the waters of the astral plane meet and merge, they create a fog, a mist. So this is a psychologically generated weather phenomenon, and it actually obscures the inner sun of our soul. The soul is always present, but it's just that its light is temporarily obscured. And so the importance of revealing the inner light is because it's this very light of truth, together with the fire of love, that will eventually burn away the veiling mists. And when those mists lift and disperse, It allows us to stand in what I would call the illumined integrity of our sovereign self. And from this place, right discernment and right action flow. So one of the three principles we work with here at Meditation Mount is the principle of essential divinity. And basically, it declares that a spark of the Creator lives inside of each one of us. So we're all sacred beings. We're all essentially divine. And what we looked at last time was that this essential spark of being, this higher fire, needs a place. It needs a fireplace. And the natural fireplace that can safely house the highest fire is the soul. So during our time on earth, we can actually gain access 24/7 to this inner fire, to this limitless inner resource as we open the portal of the heart, as we meditate, because meditation brings us online with the soul. But the heart is important because it's said that the heart is the hearth in which the central fire of love can burn safely inside of us. And this is the eternal flame of being. Sounds like very lofty statements, but when you realize that each of us is a sacred being with a sacred flame burning at the center, then suddenly daily life takes on a whole new meaning. The other thing was that we were reminded that in the Trans-Himalayan mystery tradition, which is the lineage upon which Meditation Mount is founded, it indicates the potential demise of humanity can be averted if three truths are acknowledged and if they're steadfastly applied each day as guiding principles. And we name these three recognitions. And this is what we're going to continue exploring today. The three recognitions are: one, the fact of the soul as our essential nature and true guiding light. Two, the existence of the realm of the soul as an embodied field of overlighting and all-embracing leadership, love, and wisdom. And thirdly, a divine plan that contains the purpose, promise, and destiny of humankind, as well as that of the evolving sentient being we know as planet Earth. All this divine plan is really the same way we see a seed, because a seed contains the promise and pattern of the flower to be, and the divine plan contains the promise and pattern of what is to be our destiny. So last month we covered the first of these two recognitions. We asserted the fact of the soul, and then addressed the reality of the realm of the soul. And this one, I think, maybe require just a little more explanation. So let me offer an encapsulation of this second recognition, the recognition of the realm of the soul. So imagine a magnificent continuum of divine expression, like this amazing rainbow, stretching from the dense physical plane all the way up to the highest fiery frequency of divine will and purpose. And we give this continuum, this rainbow, we give all the different stages and phases of the continuum the name of kingdoms or realms. Many of these realms are not visible to our own eyes, so we don't register them. We don't know that they're part of our daily reality. We call them invisible realms, but as I've mentioned before in other broadcasts, to the beings that inhabit these realms, they don't see themselves as invisible. They're very substantial. It's just that we don't have the eyes to see. So we're talking about the realm of the soul, which is also referred to as the fifth kingdom. Last time we talked about the first kingdom being the mineral, the second being the plant, the third being the animal, the fourth being us humans. And then there is the next evolution, which is the fifth kingdom. This is the realm of the souls, and it vibrates at a higher frequency than our human sphere of existence. So what is this? And without going into too much depth, because we did cover it last time, I just want to encapsulate by saying this fifth kingdom has been referred to by different names throughout history, particularly in the religious communities. For instance, the communion of saints is the name given in Christianity. The spiritual hierarchy and the masters of wisdom is the name given in the ageless wisdom tradition. And the rishis and the mahatmas is the name given in the Vedic tradition. And then you have other names, sort of generalized names called the illumined ones, the wise ones, the enlightened ones. It simply means those beings that inhabit the realm of the soul. And I'm very grateful to my dear friend Donald Keyes, because he called this sphere of higher awareness and consciousness the land of postgraduate humans. It's like once we've graduated the fourth kingdom or fourth realm, we then enter the fifth. And I really like his description because it gives a hint at what it really takes to inhabit this neighboring level to which I believe we're aspiring and to which we are evolving. It's where our evolution is taking us, from the humanity to being an embodied soul. So what do we say about a resident of this realm? I would say a resident of the realm of the soul has cleared away all the blockages and distortions from within their own individual field of consciousness, so that their personality is fused with the soul, and its light radiates unhindered as a blessing to all around. So in this way, you could see the fifth kingdom representing the full flowering of the promise held within the heart of our humanity. It's the promise of who we are destined to become. It's our next destination. I like to see us as enrolled in a vast planetary graduate program where you evolve from realm to realm, where the one life gets to know itself through experiencing itself in these different kingdoms and realms. So as we journey from the fourth to the fifth, I am incredibly grateful that we have the guidance of mentors who've successfully traveled the same challenging paths that we presently find ourselves on. So I ask myself, what better guide than those who have already successfully made this ascent and who stand ready, willing, and able to help us, their fellow travelers. Now, the Ageless Wisdom teaching proposes that a major task that we have is building a path of consciousness, a rainbow bridge, the Antakarana. And this connects the lower mind with the higher mind inside us as individuals, but inside the planetary being, it connects the fourth and the fifth realms, so that through this link, a flood of much needed light and love can enter our earthly planes, and then it can circulate through the entire multidimensional body of Earth. In one respect, you could say that humanity is the missing connective tissue. So once we have established a living relationship with our own soul, because our own soul is already a member of the realm of the soul, it's just that as incarnated beings, we've not made that fusion, we've not made that merger. And so we still need to practice and to connect and to integrate and align so that we become this connective tissue that is part of the evolving life of the planet. So that's probably enough as a recap. I don't want to give a repeat of the first session. So let's say that we've caught up with ourselves and we're now ready to ponder the third recognition. The third recognition is that of a divine plan, a cosmic blueprint in which our own destiny as individuals and as a species is intimately interwoven with that of the sentient earth. We can never forget that we're part of a living being called the earth, that we are lives within this life. So let's focus on this third recognition, that of the divine plan. So there's some things that immediately come to mind. If we're truly being invited to engage as co-creative agents of a divine design and a spiritual architecture, which we're calling the divine plan, we need to look at the implications of saying yes to this, because we have choice. So it raises the question of how the proposition of a predetermined future can actually coexist with the principle of free will without compromising our individual freedom of choice, because our individual freedom of choice we hold as a God-given and inviolate right. So I'd ask each of you, when you hear the word divine plan, does this sound like an unwelcome guest, an unwelcome imposition on your own personal life? Or is it a joyful invitation to participate and to reveal your own unique contribution in the outworking of a larger planetary vision? And that's what I'd like to explore with you now. So going back to this whole thing of choice. Yeah, there have been times in my life where I've really resisted any attempt by other people or organizations to tell me what I should do. I held fast to my own dreams, to my own desires, and I claimed the ground upon which I stood. It's my right. I get the right to choose. And this is typically how I behaved when I was operating from a limited awareness that perceived myself as a separate unit needing to survive and wanting solely to choose what was best for me. It's natural when I do not see myself as part of a larger whole. Therefore, the whole intent and impetus of my life is to take care of myself. And then we take this wonderful journey from I to we. And as we progress on I to we suddenly realize that I'm not a separate unit. And then this initial fear of losing my individuality if I allow others into my life, that seems to fade. And therefore, I begin to understand that instead of losing myself by becoming part of a larger whole, I actually gain and grow into an expanded sense of self. So the I expands to the we. And in fact, I am being required to be more of an individual inside the we state because it's my, if you like, prerogative and it's my responsibility of bringing the fullness of who I am to the group field. So this for me was a very important stage of realizing that it's okay. It's okay to be part of something larger because I don't lose who I am. I just get an expanded sense of self. So we go back to the question of, are we living a premeditated or a meditated life? Is there a plan that's already in place that we have to follow? Or are we just making this up as we go along? So the answer may be yes and yes. Yes, we're part of a greater predestined cosmic purpose and overall plan. And yes, we're also being invited to be spontaneous in every moment as to how, what, and where we contribute our unique gifts and talents in the collective crafting of what I would call a magnum opus that constitutes the life work of the Creator. So if you see your life, my life, our life, as part of the outworking of a greater life, and this greater life is really creating on the outside the purpose that lives on its inside, then we're part of this great magnum opus. An incredible opportunity to participate. So we go back to free will. And if we see that free will is the ability to choose how best to use our resources in choosing a specific outcome, then once we grasp that we're part of an interrelated web of life, then automatically, naturally, spontaneously, our heartfelt desire is to support the greater good, because as we willingly support the health of the whole system, it naturally nourishes all of its constituent parts. And this, for me, I believe, is the breakthrough point when we really appreciate that as we give to life, life gives to us because we're part of life. But if I see myself as separate, then I see the world around me and the resources around me as something I can take or plunder in order to survive. We're here to work together to serve something greater than ourselves. But we have to do it consciously through our own free will. So for me, if I am indeed as the principle of essential divinity says, essentially divine, if I am a fractal of the one life, then the divine plan is also part of my unfolding into greater states of wholeness, greater states of identity and embodiment. So I'm not the victim. Life is not demanding anything unreasonable of me. And this divine plan isn't an order to be obeyed, but it's the compelling call of life that's inviting me and you to share a destiny and a deeper dimension of meaning and belonging. So that's how I'm holding this. And as we look around the world, there are many people responding to the call to make the planet a better place to live, a more just, a more respectful place, right relationships with each other, with the ecosystem. So what if we were to view the emerging global coalition of individuals and groups whose hearts have been open to this call to build a brighter future as co-creative partners with the many realms and spheres of the living planet? So it isn't just we've got a coalition of humans. We are actually part of a multi-dimensional project, which is the outworking of the destiny of the planet Earth. That's how I hold it. So we are here to help manifest the dream that burns within the heart and mind of the planetary being. So seen in this light, all of our endeavors, they really constitute interdependent points of expression. They constitute diverse aspects of a grand strategy to materialize the beauty of this divine dream, this plan. And this is achieved through conscious cooperation with all of the realms, both visible and invisible. So the word plan, when you think of blueprint and plan, it seems like it's rigid. But let me explain how I hold this, because as a gardener, and one of my favorite things was to go and plant carrot seeds. If I think about a carrot seed, the carrot seed contains the pattern and the promise of the crunchy carrot. And so in a similar manner, the vision alive in the planetary logos, the planetary being, contains the pattern and promise of a tangible heaven on earth, the outworking of the inner reality of the planet. So this pattern is what we're referring to as the divine plan. It's not some sort of scroll or scripture that we have to follow. It's more of an impulse, an invitation to respond to a deep call of life. And right now, I believe that this divine plan is being live streamed into the ethers to ignite our collective human consciousnesses with new possibilities. And it's also being live streamed to mobilize us to action, because we can't just dream. As they say, if you have a vision without action, it's a daydream. But if you have action without a vision, it's a nightmare. So our job is to give form to this dream. And I know as a gardener that the promise with any seed can only be sown in the garden in order to be shown. You can only show what's inside by sowing and growing it. And I believe likewise, the dream held within the heart and mind of the planetary being, the logos of Earth, really depends on the creative imagination and the joyful creativity of humanity to give it shape and substance. And it's been said that as souls on Earth, we are literally the hands and feet and co-creative agents of God. God here means the being in whom we live and move and have our being as part of this planetary experience. So let me just shift slightly and talk about David Bohm, the quantum physicist. When I came across him a number of years ago, I really appreciated his description of an implicate order. He said an implicate order is an endless and ever-expanding process of evolution, and it occurs through phases of enfolding and unfolding. And when I read this, it really resonated because it brought me back to the lessons I'd learned from Mother Nature as a young gardener. about how the beauty of a flower is revealed inside the Garden of Gaia. So if I was to look at Dr. Bohm's insights of how things happen, and if I was to go back to my gardening experience, I would say I see the enfolded universe as the promise of the future. It's like the enfolded, it is packed into a particle of infinity, but like the seed needs to be planted in the fields of time and space to fully show its true beauty. So maybe we could consider one of our primary tasks as human beings to be the agents entrusted with the unfolding of the enfolded universe through the cycles and seasons of earthly life. So if you think of a seed, it has to be planted in the soil to be revealed. The enfolded universe, in order to deliver on its promise, has to be unfolded. And I believe that part of our journey of growth and spiritual development is the actual unfolding of the enfolded universe at a very personal level. So in this way, we could say that the future is held as an inner promise and a seed atom of fiery hope that requires our unique artistic touch to give it form. So when we view the enfolded as containing the pattern to be unfolded, because that which is to be is contained in the seed, this inner design correlates to the spiritual architecture we're now calling the divine plan. So for me, the divine plan is this pattern, this imprinting, this promise of things to come, and it's inviting us to step into it and to be part of it. So let me shift again slightly, because in the Ageless Wisdom teachings, there's a sequence of steps that defines this needed passage from the ideal as an idea to its realization in form. And these three phases are called purpose, plan, and project. I want to cover them because plan is the second one, and it is absolutely necessary for the whole thing to work. So if I was to use the esoteric language from our lineage, I would say that purpose is held by Shambhala, the planetary head center where the will of God is known. Those of you familiar with this kind of language will understand it, and I'll give you more of a generalized interpretation of this in a moment. So this fiery impulse from the fire of purpose actually informs the plan. And the plan is registered and held in safekeeping by the loving wisdom of the realm of the soul. This is where the fifth kingdom fits in, because it functions as the planetary heart center. And the heart is where the purpose is registered as the plan. And then this living blueprint, as far as I understand it, is transmitted to humanity. And we register it and respond to it by inner promptings, and it becomes a project. So purpose, plan, project. We then become involved in a project to carry out the promise, the purpose, through tuning into the plan. So we are the project center for the divine plan because we as humanity are the planetary throat center, the creative center. We're the instrument of creative expression. So I would say a human's project, a service project or whatever project we want to think of, can be seen as a projection. So a project is a projection from the realm of higher purpose that's received and envisioned by the realm of souls as the plan and the inner architecture. And then from this inner architecture, all temporal forms of expression are precipitated and constructed. So I know some of you are visual learners. So let me summarize this process with the following slide. Let's just go over this. As you can see here, left to right, purpose, plan, project. And then we've got head center, heart center, throat center. This is the triangle, the working triangle inside the planetary being that brings everything into fruition. The head center working with the heart center, working with the throat center. Head center, Shambhala. Heart center, the realm of the soul. Humanity, the project center, active creative intelligence. So we have this flow from will and power, will and purpose, through love and wisdom to active intelligence that creates forms. And so at the bottom line, it says, the purpose initiates. The plan is the custodian. It holds the possibility, just like the seed holds the possibility. And then, in order for it to be revealed, it needs to be built in form. And we are the builders of form. We are the artisans of life. You know, whether you think of a Michelangelo with a hammer, chisel, and a block of marble revealing David, Michelangelo was there to reveal the promise of what was held inside of matter, what was held inside of the dream. So, if you like, the image of David represented the beauty of our humanity that then has to be revealed. And it can only be revealed when we're inspired. And inspired means being filled with spirit. So these are the three stages of the creative process: idea, ideal, and realization. So I just wanted to give you, if you like, a visual of that, because this wasn't meant to be a workshop or a course on the esoteric wiring system of the cosmos. But I think it's really important when we're talking about the plan that we understand where it fits in. The plan is that which holds the purpose and then inspires us to act in accord with that deeper purpose. So this threefold approach is an accurate outline of the principles and protocols of creative meditation. And creative meditation brings ideas into manifestation through the occult fact that energy follows thought. Every time we think something, we give it intent. That intent is a purpose. And it creates, if you like, a thought form, a meme, a pattern, a blueprint. And then if we give enough energy to the blueprint and we give enough time and resource, it actually shows up as a tangible object or a project, an organization. So we, in our own way, live out and play out this purpose, plan, and project. So you could say that creative meditation, this process of bringing things into being, is actually scalar in nature. And the same process applies equally to a person, a planet, or to the whole cosmos. So I just want to wrap this part up by saying, if we look at our own ecosystem of self, that's what I call my own being, the universe of self or ecosystem of self. It's the totality of my being. So if I'm attempting to understand how the creative process works inside of me, inside of Michael, then purpose would be the deep fire of the monad, the highest fire. It's the nuclear core of my being. And this nuclear core pulses and sounds a note of purpose, a note of will and intention. And this note is picked up, registered by my soul. Because my soul, as a loving and wise field, is a field of impression. And this field of impression receives the note and it becomes a pattern, and a geometry. Just as you know, when you sound a frequency, a note inside a sand tray, it creates these different patterns. So the note of divine purpose, or the note of my own essential divinity, when it sounds a note and is registered by the soul, it creates a certain pattern. And that pattern is my destiny. It's my part in the plan. And then once I've registered that, then my soul telepathically radiates the plan to my personality, its agent on earth. It inspires and stimulates me, because if I am the incarnated agent on earth, it needs to stimulate me to creative action. It therefore initiates a project. I have an idea. Oh, let's do that. I think this is the thing to do. This is my life work. This is my project. And so very often when we're looking at what am I supposed to do here on the planet? What career do I choose if I'm young and just graduating, just coming out of school, or just thinking, what am I going to do with my life? What are we listening to? If we listen to the highest purpose, and if we listen to the call of the soul, we'll get what's called a vocation, a vocare. A vocation is our calling, and we respond to the call. So what we're being asked to do, I believe, is to respond to the call of life. And so creative meditation, as we hold it here at Meditation Mount, particularly the creative meditation on the pathways and principles of the realm of the soul, is what's required to build from the inside out a new world together. And we've covered the 3 principles and the pathways in other broadcasts, so I don't want to repeat myself, simply to say that we have these 3 principles of essential divinity, goodwill, and unanimity. So if we see ourselves as essentially divine, we see goodwill as love being the glue that holds everything together, the lifeblood of all relationships. That's goodwill. And if we see unanimity as this seamless web of life that holds everything together, if we hold that, then we're not acting out of separation. We are here to serve the good of the whole because we understand that we're part of the whole. So the reason that in the esoteric teaching, it talks about the importance of the 3 recognitions is not that people believe in something, but once you have an understanding of the reality of the soul, once you have an understanding of the reality of the realm of the soul, and it really is the full realization of what lives in our heart, because then we can be in dialogue with our deeper nature, and we can create this bridge of consciousness that allows this lifeblood to flow around the planet. Once you understand that, then daily life takes on a slightly different meaning. So, like each one of us, the sacred ecosystem we call planet Earth is also evolving. It's also is being called to fulfill its destiny, its light-filled promise. And I believe it's being called to by the solar being. We're being called to by the planetary being because we're part of planetary Earth, which in turn is being called to by the solar being to unfold itself, to unfold the enfolded. So as we've mentioned before, if you see life as this nested reality, lives within evolving lives, then we get this sense of, as we grow in consciousness, we're expanding into greater spheres of identity, greater spheres of wholeness. So for me, the importance of understanding that we're part of a divine plan doesn't take away my freedom. And in fact, it inspires us and asks us to be the true artisans, to actually create something that has never been created before. And the thing is, just like in a garden, if each one of us does not flower, the garden of Gaia is not complete. If each one of us does not bring our gifts to the realization of this divine plan, it will not be complete. It'll be missing some pixels. It will be missing some colors. And that's where we are facing the choice point at the moment. Is our life to be that of a divine artist, or are we here to survive the pending apocalypse? And as we know, in the true meaning, the word apocalypse means revelation of something new. And something new can only be built when the old falls away. So what we're seeing now is a falling away of the old in order to clear a space for the emergence of the new. And the emergence of the new can only come about if we're able to respond as souls to the call of life. So that's the reason I felt it was important to put forward, at least present the 3 recognitions. And I probably should have given this disclaimer earlier on in the broadcast, but as you know, I usually say, don't believe a word I say. Please don't believe anything I say unless it resonates in your heart, unless you can fact check it yourself. Because there are times when I'll quote from the Ageless Wisdom teaching, and I trust that teaching. There are other times when I'll share my experiences of this is what I've learned so far, and then I'll share the questions and unanswered questions that I have. But I do believe that we are here to do something together. So the full flowering of this divine plan is a daring vision, and it may take several hundreds or thousands of years to accomplish. But as a gardener, I know that if you want something to grow and flower, you've got to plant the seeds now. If we don't plant the seeds now, if we don't sow them now, nothing will show up in the future. And therefore, we're doomed to repeat what's already in motion. Unless we sow the seeds of fiery hope now, we're in this spiritual Groundhog Day. It keeps repeating itself. So anyway, I just want to bring it back to this whole thing of the freedom to choose. It's up to each one of us to make a choice in life based on the questions of why am I here? Who am I? What am I part of? What do I have to contribute? What does it mean to be fulfilled? But it's not our place to tell each other what to believe in or what not to believe in. It's not our place to tell each other what to do or not to do. For me, we can simply extend an invitation to each other for mutual inquiry and reflection so that we may discover what is true and helpful in relation to the important challenges and opportunities facing us, and then do something about it. So if we each share our field notes, hey, this is what I'm learning, rather than trying to convince each other about you need to believe in this religion or this doctrine, we don't have dogmatic wars. If we're inviting each other to respond to the call, and then we can share with each other, hey, this is how the call has showed up in me. Not just the call of a future, but also the call of a need now to deal with some of the degradation of the planet that we've created, some of the pain and suffering that we've unleashed. So really we have two roles. We are here to heal what we have set in motion that has been, if you like, painful on the planet. And at the same time, we're here to plant the seeds of a brighter future. And those seeds really contain the divine plan, the promise of who we are. So I began this exploration last month by sharing that to many of us, it feels as though daily life has become a constant and unrelenting struggle between our better angels and our inner demons. And that this state of tension is reminiscent of the epic tale that many are familiar with that is contained in the Bhagavad Gita. This is the one that describes Arjuna's dilemma on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now, Arjuna is placed in the middle there, facing two armies, and he's being asked to choose sides. He's got friends and relatives on both sides. So what side do you choose? So Arjuna is like us on Earth. How do we make choices? How do we break free of the pull of the polarities? How do we liberate ourselves? So Arjuna, like us, had periods of doubt and despair when he stood in front of seemingly insurmountable challenges, just like we are. However, Arjuna was offered wise counsel by Krishna. Now, Krishna, in this case, represents the light of our own soul. So this is why we've called this exploration Navigating by the Light of the Soul, because this is the way that Krishna helped Arjuna understand how best to comport himself and to finally overcome the fear of death and overcome all the glamours and illusions of the astral and lower mental planes that create the obscuring fog. So I'd like to wrap up this exploration by sharing Krishna's guidance to Arjuna on how to emerge victorious. And I believe it's equally applicable for us today as it was before. So before we get to the final prayer, let me just give you, I don't have a slide for this. Let me just read it out. So here's Krishna's advice, and it can be summed up in the following 5 statements, which are excerpted from the Ageless Wisdom teaching. 1, know thyself to be the undying one. This means know yourself to be eternal. Control thy mind, for through that mind, the undying one can be known. Goes back to energy follows thought. If we control our mind, then we can use it as an instrument of understanding and of creation. 3, learn that the form is but the veil which hides the splendor of divinity. So don't identify with the form. The form is the veil which hides the splendor of divinity. The form is also that which gives form to the splendor of the divinity. And the 4th piece of advice that Krishna gave to Arjuna was realize that the one life pervades all forms so that there is no death, no distress, and no separation. That's a big one. Basically saying, look, there is no death. There's simply a transition from one state to another. Nothing dies. It changes forms. And if you're not identified with the form, if you are this undying being, then you have the continuity of consciousness. And the 5th and final piece of advice was detach thyself, therefore, from the form side and come to me, stand with me, Krishna, unite with me. So dwelling in the place where light and life are found. And he says, dwelling in this place, illusion ends. The fogs disperse. So that, if you like, was Krishna's advice to Arjuna. And in a similar way, we can take to heart those same 5 statements. So let's wrap up our exploration. I want to affirm that the light of the soul is, in fact, our most reliable navigational aid and guidance system. And in the words of an ancient prayer from the Upanishads, this light will inevitably lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from the fear of death to immortality. So it feels appropriate to complete these 2 sessions on navigating by the light of the soul with a final affirmation that unequivocally declares our true spiritual identity, and it also reflects the essential elements of the 3 recognitions. And this final affirmation was given to Dr. Roberto Assagioli, who was the inspiration behind Meditation Mount, by his teacher, the Master DK. So let's finish with this affirmation. I am a messenger of light. I am a pilgrim on the way of love. I do not walk alone, but know myself as one with all great souls, and one with them in service. Their strength is mine. This strength I claim. My strength is theirs, and this I freely give. The soul, I walk on earth. I represent the One. I find that to be an incredibly powerful affirmation. In fact, I tend to use it when I wake up before I get out of bed, just to remind myself who I am before I set myself in motion. So we've covered these 2 sessions on navigating by the light of the soul. And I thank you for your presence and your participation. And may the eternal light of the soul lead us all safely through the present darkness. This is the darkness that envelops the close of one era. And may this light of the soul guide us unerringly into the lighted promise of a new day. So we're going to meet again in 2 months' time on Sunday, May the 12th, to continue our exploration into the deeper dimensions of what it means to walk the spiritual path of service, what it means to be involved in revealing the ancient mysteries so that they may better be understood and usefully applied in our daily lives. And if there's a theme that you want us to cover, please send us a message. You can write to connect@meditationmount.org and just let us know if there's a particular theme that you'd like to be explored. Also, Joseph Carenza, who's the person behind the scenes here, and I recorded a series of podcasts on a lot of these themes where we took a topical theme and we unpacked it through the lens of the esoteric philosophy. So that's also available. And if you go to our website, meditationmount.org, and you click on podcasts, you have access to that. So anyway, thank you so much for this. And I believe that we are being called to be the light of the soul on earth as best we can. It's a long journey. It takes time. And sometimes we're in the shadows and sometimes we're in the light. But eventually we'll make it. So I bid you good night from all of us at Meditation Mount, from myself, from Joey behind the scenes, making sure that the magic of the broadcast happens. And let's ask for boundless blessings on our shared soul journey. So until we meet again, thank you and namaste.